You know, it's interesting. All of us have to go at some time or another. So it's a kind of business that you don't want to think of while you're busy making a life for yourself and your family. But the truth of the matter is that eventually we all need the services of caring people in the funeral business. And I think that the McGuires have made a major contribution in that area.
In the early 1900s, armed with a degree from Dartmouth College, Dr. Robert Grayson McGuire returned to Washington to work with his father, Robert L. McGuire, a Howard-educated pharmacist. Soon the son struck out on his own, and in 1912 he opened McGuire Funeral Home on H Street Northeast. After briefly operating in the 700 block of Florida Avenue Northwest, he moved to 1820 to 26 9th Street Northwest in the bustling U Street corridor.
The grandfather, as I said, that I recall, spent many of his hours at the funeral home supervising, and he was a taskmaster from what I understand. You better do it correctly or you're not going to be around for very long.
Robert McGuire's wife, Virginia Holland Richardson McGuire, served on the D.C. Board of Education and worked with such community organizations as the YWCA and NAACP. Much of her civic activism was inspired by her father, George Richardson, a Howard-educated physician. In 1932, Robert and Virginia's son, Robert Grayson McGuire Jr., also a Dartmouth man, joined the business. Grayson, as he was known, would soon marry Eleanor Hackett. Shortly after, Eleanor received her own undertaker's license and entered the business as well.
The McGuire Funeral Home had a wonderful reputation in Washington, D.C. I remember it well on 9th Street Northwest. It was the funeral home that held the services for my dad in 1950. I remember the stately manner of Grayson McGuire and the engaging manner of Eleanor McGuire. At times like those that we had, very important to have that kind of rapport.
Over the next few decades, Grayson and Eleanor ran the family business, developing a first-class reputation in the community. Grayson sat on more than 20 civic boards and committees.
One of the old-time sayings was, people would say, unless you've been buried by McGuire, you ain't dead. So
the company worked hard at promotion. Among its successful strategies was to print and distribute free fans and calendars to the many churches that turned to the funeral service in times of need. The McGuires served many of the well-known members of the African-American community. In addition to Charlene Drew Jarvis's father, plasma pioneer Dr. Charles Drew, the McGuires oversaw the funerals of Howard Law Dean and civil rights strategist Charles Hamilton Houston, civil rights activist Medgar Evers, and soprano Madame Lillian Ivanti. In the late 1960s, John R. McGuire, Grayson and Eleanor's second son, would try his own business idea before joining the funeral service.
My father came to me and said, well, since you have had so many accounting courses, can you come down and help us until we can get somebody else to fill that slot? And I've been here ever since.
In 1980, John married Lynn Tolles. Lynn's family also has deep roots in the D.C. area. Her grandfather, Robert Tolles, worked at the government printing office and owned the Strike Right bowling alley on U Street. Her father, Robert Jr., grew up in Northeast Washington and later worked at the Naval Ordnance Station in Indian Head, Maryland. Lynn met John McGuire when she worked as an intern for the McGuire Funeral Service while she was studying mortuary science. She fit right in.
It's the ability to be able to step outside the events that are happening and guide people through the various stages of planning. I often say I can't change the circumstances, but I can help you work through them.
Lynn McGuire would teach mortuary science at the University of the District of Columbia for 32 years, while working alongside her in-laws and husband, and today her husband and son. Jason McGuire has joined the business as the fourth generation of McGuire Funeral Service. In the family tradition of public service, John is a member of the Disaster Mortuary Response Team, which assisted in the aftermath of September 11 in New York City. Lynn supports many organizations and served as a trustee of the Historical Society of Washington.
You can look with pride to the history of the organization and the fact that they've been successful at it also. Give to the world the best that you have, and the best will come back to you.